Hey, welcome back everyone to another week of the Cantina. If you've been following us so far, you know that we've been covering every single chapter of the Mandalorian Season 2, the day it airs. Apart from one day when we were kind of a day late, but hey ho, forgive us for these things sometimes.
Yeah.
And, well, it's Friday, so if it's Friday, that means there's a new episode of The Mandalorian about. This week we had Chapter 14, and myself and my co-host, Kylo Ren himself, Kylo Malone, is here with us. Kyle, say hello.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And as always, we'll be here to just discuss the episode that happened this week and let you know what we think of it. So, let's just get right into how we always start things, Kyle, before we get into the actual plot and what we thought about it. 1 to 5, what did you think of today's episode, Chapter 14? What was the name of it, by the way? What was the name of Chapter 14?
It was The Tragedy.
I watched it twice and still never picked that up. What an idiot.
So, as soon as I saw the title, I knew some things from last week that we had discussed, and some things that we had discussed in our season 1 recap and season 2 preview. I knew a lot of shit was about to come true, and it did in a way that surprised me. It did in a way that entertained me, and it did it in 30 minutes, like astoundingly. So I give this a 4.5 out of 5.
Okay. I think I have to go for 5 this one. I just thought I was really... I like what you said about they managed to do it in half an hour, because there's a very simple plot. It's almost like one set piece, this episode. It's just, that kind of runs on its own. And as a just a 30-minute set piece, I thought it was absolutely great. And I think it just had ramifications for the Star Wars franchise as well, in terms of a couple of things, especially one particular character which I just particularly enjoyed. So I think I'm going to have to go 5 out of 5 this week. I think this is my favourite episode of this season yet.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Pretty big, because God, what was it? Was it episode 2 you and I gave A pluses to? I think that's the last time we gave A pluses to, right?
And again,
our discussion,
kind of a very singular standalone episode as well, which is maybe strange.
Yep.
But I think we might have gave A pluses to the first one, the Cobb Vanth one. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. It was pretty good.
You guys can go and check our
I don't remember these things.
LRMonline.com.
So we're both happy, let's say, before we even get into it. So let's get into what happened this week's episode. The first thing is we're on the Razor Crest with Grogu and Mando, and ultimately just a very small short sequence before the titles, which is really just like a father-son, obviously, bonding moment. And we've spoke about this in previous weeks as well, how they're kind of really working on enforcing that bond, and some of the things that we've noticed as fathers that just kind of shout out to you. And there was a lot of that in this conversation, or one-sided conversation very specifically, because Mando's almost talking to Grogu as if to explain to him why they need to do what they need to do, but since Grogu can't respond in any way, it's really like Mando just talking to himself, isn't it, and trying to convince himself that he's doing the right thing.
Yep.
But even just the little touches of him saying Grogu, and then he looks up and laughing, do you know what I mean? That's the kind of thing you would do with your kid.
I thought that was so cool.
You know what I mean? Because it's just one of those things that would amuse you as a parent.
Yes, my
kid answers to its name.
Yeah, my kid first laughing to something, anything, and being able to get that sound of pure joy, and that's what he was experiencing for the first time ever in his life, was pure joy. Mando, I think, and we'll get into it, but there's a lot to say about Mando in this episode. Again, like episode 2. But anyways,
yeah. So we have that little moment, and they basically say that Typhon, they go in, they find the temple seeing stone type thing. It's too small to land the Razor Crest on, so they land it just a little bit off, and we have a jetpack moment where he takes Grogu over to the stone.
Hold on. I gotta say that this is hilarious, because this is the only time they have ever explained why he lands so far the fuck away sometimes.
That's true. It is true. He always seems to land very far away and walk wherever he needs to go. And this was the only week where you thought it was well, last week I suppose he didn't want to land right in the fort and cause alarm or something like that. But normally, he just fucking parks miles away and then has to go on a speeder for 3 days to get to where he needs to go.
What the fuck, man?
Take the ship there, and then you'll have some cannons and stuff if there's any hassle.
It's
like when he went to what'd you call it? The mining town in the first episode, and Razor Crest's kind of okay at this point. It's not falling to bits or anything like that. Which, by the way, that ship's been through some rough stuff this season, and he just parks like basically at Mos Eisley and goes on his bike all the way there.
Yeah,
okay.
What? That's like, let's invent incredibly slow, huge bombers to bomb something instead of those outstanding Y-wings we used before that helped us win the Galactic Civil War. Let's design something completely stupid. Now let's get on.
Yeah. And so basically they get to the Sea and Stone, and everything really happens quite quickly from this point on. As we kind of, I think, alluded to when we were kind of sort of prepping for this a little bit on Slack, that this episode just zips along. It really is just like one set piece. So Mando sits Grogu on the Sea and Stone and basically says, right, do something. You know, I'm supposed to take you here. You're supposed to do something. And just at the point he kind of maybe thought twice about it, that's just when Grogu obviously starts to kind of commune with this temple. And the thing that Mando is scared about is he sees a ship coming in, and any fan of Star Wars knows that ship as soon as they see it. Everyone knew that was Slave One, and we thought, okay, here comes Boba Fett. What's Boba Fett doing here? What's going on here? Is there going to be some sort of confrontation between Mando and Boba Fett? So the Grogu started doing his thing at this point, and Mando kind of heads down to buy them some time, as he says, and we basically have our first encounter between the Mandalorian and Mr. Boba Fett himself. Anything you want to say at this point before we get into Boba Fett himself?
I thought it was kind of funny sitting him on the stone and being like, all right, do something, you know, come on, make something happen. There was some humor here, and then of course once you see it, you know, start happening, and he goes to try to like be like, oh shit, like should I grab him, you know, and it throws him back. The force's force field, throws him back. I like that. Noticed that the Stonehenge temple type thing is a pyramid shape, which
aliens,
is
man.
the Jedi temple on Coruscant had pyramid shape. So,
so there's aesthetically a similar design, is what you're saying, to the way that they
it's just something that I noticed, and
yeah, the way it kind of all inverted in, and then you had a kind of central point. I see what you mean.
Yep. And then seeing that ship, I was like, I said, and here he comes. But he came with a surprise. So
yeah, and let's just point out, because we'll go on about all the things we got right, but actually, you and I both thought that might be the last we saw of Boba Fett in episode 1, that glimpse, and it might be that we don't see him again till this proposed mini-series that's proposed so much that it's basically filming at the moment. And that Boba Fett might come up more.
I wasn't sold on it
100%. Because we kind of expected, as we talked about it, that if Fett was going to track him, it would have happened a little bit earlier in the cycle. But actually,
we figured, yeah.
You just don't know these things. So when Boba Fett turned up, what was your kind of initial thought that what was going to happen here? Did you think this is going to be some kind of confrontation between the two? What were you thinking was going to happen at this point? And what Boba
my very first
were?
thought was Gideon hired him.
Oh, right.
Was my very first. That. You never considered that? I did. I considered that he was still hunting, and then he hears about this Mandalorian that's wanted by this Imperial group, and I legitimately thought for a moment there was the potential that he was killing two birds with one stone, get a bounty and get his armor back, right? Right.
All right. I was just worried that he was going to come in and be campy villainous. Does that make sense? That he was going to go, you've got my armor, Mando, and now I've come to get it back. You know what I mean? And it was going to be one of those kind of situations, and I'm like,
I didn't think that at all.
I don't fancy that.
No.
So I was pleasantly surprised when Boba Fett was like, hey, let's just put our guns down and talk about this, and he explained he was looking to get his armor back. Din basically made it clear that he's the one wearing the Beskar armor. He would gun Boba Fett down if he tried to get his armor off him or tried to do anything else, take the child, etc. Boba Fett explained he's not there for that. He's there for the armor that he got from Cobb Vanth. It was his and his father's before him. And then he asks him if he was a Mandalorian. And this is a question that's, kicked off in the sort of Star Wars fandom, if you like, because there's a scene in the Clone Wars where, what's his name? Albeck or something like that. Anyway, the Mandalorian claims that Jango Fett was not a true Mandalorian. Alright, so he asks him the question and he gives that line, I'm just a simple man trying to make my way in the galaxy. So they changed that a little bit from universe, like my father before me. That was a nice little nod. Yeah, you like that? I know you don't like the prequel nods too much, so what did you think about that? Because that was always one of my favourite, most quotable lines from, the prequel trilogy. It's the kind of thing somebody would say to me, who are you at a party or something like that, and I would just say something like, I'm a simple fan trying to make my way in the universe, and they would just look at you going, what the fuck are you on about? You don't get it.
It reminded me that line, even originally spoken, reminds me a lot of like the Han Solo Cantina scene type speak.
Yeah.
That type of
that's the thing, as much
edginess.
As we trashed the prequel trilogy quite rightly, but it was because of how it was made, but there was the occasionally good line and good quotable part.
Every now and then.
Memes and quotes of it, and actually I quite liked Jango Fett in the prequel trilogy. I don't think they almost gave him enough to do. It was just like a once and done out, and Boba Fett wasn't really old enough then to kind of establish his own character, so I kind of felt almost he should have carried on a little bit longer into the third movie, to give that a bit more substance. But it was always one of the kind of aspects of things I actually appreciated, even though most fans, I think, didn't like the fact that, you know, he was a clone and that, you know, that was the same model that they used for the clone troopers and everything like that. But really, at that point, we thought stormtroopers were clone troopers as well, so we were kind of thinking, does that mean Boba Fett's basically just a stormtrooper that can shoot? Do you know what I mean? But actually, the way they've done it now, it actually makes a lot more sense, because the clones were far better warriors than the stormtroopers were. Let's be perfectly honest about that. You know, the Empire went downhill when they get rid of the clones, but they had to get rid of the clones. It's, you know, they only had a shelf life. So
yeah, in the EU, they have a clock. The clones.
It's
some have like a mutation that keeps them from dying off as fast, and Boba Fett was one of those or something like that in the EU after the prequels were made.
Right. They can't explain that
why he was around
in Attack of the Clones anyway, because they explain that, you know, he asked for one completely unaltered clone,
right.
Yes, no genetic modification, no growth acceleration, and like that. So he was basically just a normal kid, despite being a clone.
Right.
So theoretically, he should live as long as Django could have if he hadn't had his head chopped off by Mace Windu.
Theoretically, that's true. I'm just saying what they had done in the EU. I don't know what they've done with the clones as far as how they just die out.
Well, I mean, Rex is still around in Rebels, all right, which is set just before the original trilogy, and Rex is a very old man in it, because that growth acceleration still exists, so they age much quicker, you know. So he was jumping about with Ahsoka in the Clone Wars just 10 years, 15 years earlier, and just like a normal adult male, and then by 15 years later he's like a 60-year-old man. So by the time we see Rex, if we do see Rex at all in The Mandalorian, which could still happen, I don't know, but I've got a hard time seeing Rex turning up at the moment. I do. He would have been with Ahsoka, I think, if he was going to turn up. But who knows? Maybe season 3. But Boba Fett would just be normal age. So actually, going age-wise, Tamura Morrison's actually a little bit old to be playing Boba Fett at this stage of his life. Yeah, so I think you can excuse the fact that, you know, he's been in a Sarlacc, you know, they gave him all that scar damage. I think that was to try and make him...
being on Tatooine for a while.
Years
it is
you know, you just have to excuse that little break in canon, because the only alternative would be some weird CGI de-aging, which wouldn't have worked and been too expensive for a character that you're going to carry forward, or TV cast them. And I don't think any of those would satisfy the fans, and frankly it just didn't bother me one iota.
They gotta save the de-aging for his mini-series.
Well, potentially. I mean, it depends. I'm imagining the miniseries would focus on what happened next, basically after Return of the Jedi, and how you got to that point. What I'm hoping is that it shows that him maybe taking some different choices, because I think my son came down and watched a little bit with me today, and he's like, "Oh, don't trust Boba Fett. Boba Fett's a villain," and I thought he's not. And I then had a discussion with him about this, and I said Boba Fett never really does anything villainous. In the original trilogy, he's a neutral character, completely neutral. He just works for whoever pays him. If the rebels had paid him first to go and do a job for them, he would have done it to the best of his ability. But if it was against the Empire or something, he would have wanted an incredible amount of money.
He tells Han Solo that in the EU, and one of the most best written. It's one of the best written scenes ever. Boba Fett just happens to help the Solos out of a tight situation. I think it was during the Vong War. Maybe it was the second Galactic Civil War with Jaina's brother Jason. I can't remember which one it was specifically, but Han looks at Fett, and Fett looks back at Han, and they just go their separate ways, and then he like calms him and says, you know, it was nothing personal. You were just a job. That's all. Yeah. And I loved that moment, and I don't mind if he does have a Jedi hate to this day, like still carries a grudge against Jedi.
There's a reason for that,
but I wouldn't mind if he doesn't either. It does, like look. Here's the thing.
I think he's pragmatic enough to not say I hate all Jedi and stuff like that just because of what happened. At the end of the day, I think being as mature he is now, he knows that you also you also get what you sow. When you do certain things, you have to accept the consequences. And that's why I wonder if they're kind of going to have some sort of, wouldn't call it a redemption arc, because that's kind of like almost what I think Mando's went through. I think Mando's going from anti-hero to hero. That's his journey. But I could see Boba Fett going from neutral to anti-hero, which is a journey in itself, but just not as far as Din Djarin would go. You know, I could see him having had almost an epiphany in his years in Tatooine, and like deciding that not every cause and not every money's necessarily worth it. And the reason it makes me think that is, I know this is jumping to the end, but it'd be stupid to leave this to the end, is when all's said and done, you know, Mando basically says, right, you know, you can have the armor, and be on your way kind of thing. And Mando and Boba Fett's quite clear that no, I made a commitment to you that, sorry, it's a wee bit stormy here, my door just blew shut there. Listeners.
All right.
You know, my debt is, you know, I've got a debt to you. I got my armor back. I told you, even though it was just, you know, briefly beforehand, you know what I mean? I'll help you protect the child, so therefore, until the child's back with you, I'm in your debt. And he basically signals to Fennec that that's the way it's going to go. And you could see in her eyes beforehand, I know what's coming here. Yeah. And I don't like this. Do you know what I mean? But since I'm indebted to Fett, Fett's indebted to this guy, so am I. And she kind of accepts it. You see all that kind of in a performance. I'm not a fan of Ming Wang that much, right? So I actually thought she was quite good in this. You know,
you mean Ming Na Wen?
Sorry, what did I say?
I'm not quite sure, but it was not Ming Na or Ming Na Wen. Okay. Because she used to just go by Ming Na real early in her career, and
I knew it was Wen. Then was her surname.
Then she went, Then she went to her I guess more proper name of Ming.
I think I forgot the Na. That's what it is. I think I said Ming Wen. So. Sorry.
Anyway,
sorry, Miss or Mrs. Wang. I don't know if you're married. Anyway, but I actually thought just the little facial expressions, the little things she did, actually just worked a lot better this time that I saw her. So, you know, I'm used to seeing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and I was never a big fan of, and that's maybe just the character that she played that I didn't like, you know, which is not necessarily the actress's fault. But
you know how
we've talked about this before.
You know how I first met her?
I think you told me before it was ER, wasn't it?
ER.
Yeah, and you said she was great in that. So
I loved it.
Absolutely. It's maybe just like
Dr.
sometimes
Chen.
when you see somebody in one role a lot, you tend to kind of associate them with that role. And then when she showed up in season 1 of The Mandalorian, I thought, oh, you've just kind of done almost the same thing again. You were just your Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. character there, but I kind of saw a different side to that this week. I don't know, and maybe that's a change in her as well. So that's what makes me think there's something different about Boba Fett, because I kind of feel is pre-Return of the Jedi Boba Fett would have just said, if he'd sons and say, well, a deal's a deal, he'd have said, okay, I'll drop you off somewhere as maybe at best, you know what I mean, I'll give you a lift, but you know, you're on your own. I you know, that kind of thing. I just don't think I'm being honourable enough to kind of satisfy a date like that. That's what makes me think the character's changed a little bit. What do you think?
Yeah, and what I wanted to say about 5 minutes ago was look at this. You've got me, ladies and gentlemen. Go back, listen to our solo episode, our Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi episodes. I rip Boba Fett apart every chance I get. Not
just explain though, for the listeners, just in case they don't want to go back. What is, because I agree with you on your issue. What is your issue with Boba Fett?
He has just a couple of lines in Empire, and spends most of the rest of the time just standing. And then in Jedi, he spends most of his time just standing until it's time to fight, and then he's used for comedic effect when he's killed off. He's comedic effect. Boba Fett, where? He flies off. It's slapstick. So why is that guy so fucking beloved?
That's always the way I thought of it, as you know. I kind of get more out the character from the EU books, probably like you, because that got to advance his character a little bit more. So I can understand EU fans liking Boba Fett, but I don't get it in the general why he became so popular in the first place. Because it was a kind of cool background character you kind of wanted to know more about, but that's it. You know, he didn't really do anything badass. No. You know, there was nothing for him to do badass. So, you know, obviously, to get back to where we are and seed back into that again, obviously, after, you know, they've sorted out the kind of plan between them and you know, he wants to get his armour back, the Empire shows up. And, you know, Boba Fett and Mando and Fennec are basically going to defend the child from the Imperial assault. Mando goes up, he tries to get the child out, fails a few times, so that kind of takes him out of the fight, which was nice because we kind of just got to see Fennec and Fett fighting a little bit. So Fennec's in sort of sniper cover mode, and what I loved was just Fett's fighting technique during this small bit where he's basically got no weapon. He's just got a sand piercing staff, you know, which I don't know if a gaffy stick. Yeah, he's just got a gaffy stick, and you know, he's just so brutal with this sort of close range combat and stuff like that. I just love these sort of the brutality he's fighting and why he just, you know, it looks like he does not care. It reminded me of something.
Right? It reminded me of is it Churi in Rogue One? The blind Will's monk?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, why he was so good.
Kind of his fighting style kind of reminded me of his
a
little bit, with very precise strikes, and kind of the way they shot his fight scene with the stormtroopers was similar in Rogue One, with a lot of really good hard cuts to hard hits and things like that. It was cool.
Maybe Robert Rodriguez took some sort of inspiration from that when he was coming in, you know. And that was a surprise as well, who directed it, but we'll get to that at the end. But you know, so I really enjoyed that sort of combat sequence, and then his fight takes him towards the Razor Crest, and he looks over and he sees the open door, and you just have this kind of pan shot on his face. And you know what's coming next. Everybody knows what's coming next at that point, I think. So then we get back to Fennec, who's kind of starting to get her ass kicked. By this point, Mando comes down. He uses his, you know, that cool gadget that he's got, and they fight back. He kind of plays shield to Fennec, but they're getting outmanned. And then Boba Fett arrives from the sky, and we just get a kick-ass sort of Boba Fett in action with his suit sequence. So just talk us through that whole sort of action sequence from the kind of, I asked you what you thought about that, the moment when he sees the armor, but really from that point on, what do you think about it?
The whole thing is great. Like I was talking about the fight with a possible Rogue One nod, maybe not,
Yeah.
but
But more kind of
something that I noticed.
Like the later part, once he gets the armor back on, and like the Mando and Fennec fighting off the road.
Right. I wanted to mention a couple things before I get there. With the regular stormtroopers, when they're firing at what's her name? With the E-Web. Look, Hollywood, you lead targets, okay? You shoot ahead of where a target is moving. You lead it when you're firing because of physics. So it makes no sense ever in any setting.
Wait a minute. What if you
to shoot your target
Wait a minute.
from behind?
What
like
if
that?
you're instead of firing a bullet, your gun fired out a light beam that travelled at the speed of light, which is many, many, many thousands of times faster than the speed of a bullet?
Yeah, but these laser blasts are not traveling at the speed of light. We can see them.
Point.
Clearly, it's a type of energy blast. It is definitely bright and
You're right, it's definitely not
plasma,
the
but
speed of
it's
light, because then people would just die
yeah.
before
So,
you know what I mean. You'd just see, and they'd be dead already.
But yeah,
that'd be quite good to do in a cheap
but
sci-fi.
anyways, so and then the last thing, because this is where Fett gets his armor. I said the fucking Razor Crest needs auto turrets, and this is before something else happens. And then Fett gets his armor. Okay, Fett's fight, great, coming in, kicking ass with weapons that we know of, like the pistol, did he use the flamethrower?
No, he didn't use his flamethrower. No, but he used that kind of.
But he used the grappling hook, right?
Well, no, it was something he used, like the laser blast on his. Now he's got that laser gun on his left pauldron. He used that.
Right.
He used. I think
something on his knee.
Something on his knee, which we've never seen before.
Yeah.
It was kind of like Mando's thing that comes out his wrist, but it was like on his knees. But I don't think he used his cord.
But I could have swore something shot out of his wrist, or he did something with his hand.
I think that was the laser beam on his left wrist that he just kind of held it out.
Okay, maybe
and
that's
what it was. Blew a couple back.
That was cool, and even though Fett is a little older, and he was apparently well fed on I guess Womp Rat and
maybe you just can't get a balanced
there.
diet in Tatooine. It's like meat. It's just a meat diet, and it's just bagging them up.
Yeah. You know, so he couldn't, do the old fashioned Fett armor, but they got him looking Fett.
Hey, it looks like a slightly overweight Fett in armor, in his own armor, but not with the proper bits that fit onto it. So the bits that would have melted away, etc.
They did a great job with him, and I'm going to steal your thunder here.
Mm-hmm.
I actually loved when the stormtroopers retreat, and Fett shoots off his missile using the thing I don't like, the antenna coming down. I don't like that. I don't know why it's got to be a separate site, but whatever. And I love the joke that he says, I was aiming for the other one.
Which you can see on the target and reticule as well. He was aiming at the other one.
Yeah. And like I said again, ladies and gentlemen, I am talking very positively about Boba Fett right now. Like,
and do you know what
the only time I ever do that is that story about him meeting Han
and the EU
saving the Solos in the EU, and that's it. And then I mentioned that he helps Jaina to train to kill Jason, and that's it. Like, I never have anything positive to say about Boba Fett.
But you know why? Because what they did was they said, right, I think they maybe understood similar to us that he's got this reputation for nothing, so they made him a badass. You know what I mean? He was a proper badass. He jumps in and he makes you actually think Mando's a bit of an amateur compared to this guy. Do you know what I mean? In terms of his experience, you know, how he works as one with the suit and all the gadgets that he's got and everything like that as well. You know, I just thought he was a badass, and I was just smiling, you know, watching it as a fan.
Yeah. I basically thought to myself, now people have a complete legit on screen reason to think Boba Fett is a badass.
Yeah, exactly. That's all I was ever asking for, basically. That's all I was ever asking for. You know, if I had directed Return of the Jedi, I would have made him a bit more of a badass in that movie. I wouldn't have, you know, killed him off the same way, but at the end of the day, he was up against Luke Skywalker, so he would have lost.
Yeah.
You know, like, I always imagined, like, see, when, like, he flies in, I'd have had him just shooting the whole time and Luke deflecting laser blasts as he's landing in, and then he cuts the gun as he lands. Do you know what I mean? Would have been, for example, a much cooler shot. But anyway, the dog thinks so. Anyway, thanks, dog.
Riza.
Thanks, dog.
Hold on 1 second, Cam. Let me make sure you done. Okay, hey, we'll carry on.
Okay. So they get the Empire to retreat, but Gideon sends down 4 or 5 Dark Troopers, I think it is.
He sends down Tony Stark's Iron Legion is what he sends.
Basically, it is that kind of thing. And this confirms, and he calls them Dark Troopers, that these are really the Dark Troopers from the old games. Absolutely, because they are robotic, and that cuts out our theories that Gideon was trying to create some sort of force-sensitive super army, because the Dark Troopers he's created are clearly droids there. I'm interested to see whether they're coated in Beskar or not, but that we shall wait and see in that. I think that would make them almost too fucking powerful, to be honest, because you know they'd be deflecting lightsabers and shit. But I don't know. We'll wait and see what happens with that. But they just come straight down. They grab little Grogu, who's finished his communion with the stone, and you know, he's knackered, he just, you know, collapses, can't defend himself really in any way, and they just grab him and they dive straight up. At this point, just before that, the Razor Crest has been wiped out by the Star Destroyer that's up in the atmosphere. That was quite, you know, because I think when you get attached to people's ships, don't you? Do you know what I mean? In these kind of fan things, you get, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know,
and
the Razor Crest's up there.
Possessions.
It's not the Millennium Falcon for me, but, you know, the Razor Crest's up there as one of my kind of favourite ships now, and just to see that go kaboom. I think it's when it's went through everything that's went through this season and been all fixed, you know, and ready to go, and then it just gets wiped out. You always feel like, oh, what
and I guess
shame.
all of his possessions and now the child, you know, like, man, you leave poor Den in a really bad way.
Absolutely, you know what I mean. Shell's been kidnapped, his ship's been broken, he doesn't know what to do. The Empire fuck off, as you would imagine that they would do at that point, and he's basically just left stranded with nothing to do. And you know, I suppose at this point I wasn't really sure, right, where do they go next kind of thing with this, and that's of course when we get to the scene where I spoke about earlier on. He finds the Beskar spear, which has survived because it's made of Beskar, obviously. He picks that up.
Something else too.
He finds the little Death Star thing that we think, you know, didn't actually brought it for a souvenir store somewhere on Alderaan.
Yeah.
Before it was coming, hey, Death Star's in the atmosphere, look, we're making bubbles. Oh shit.
Yep.
And then that's the kind of thing that would happen. If one of them turned up on Earth, there'd be people selling them in a street corner in New York the next day. Get your Death Star memorabilia here. But you know, capitalism is its finest. But you know, Din's a broken man at this point, and he, you know, says, right, you know, I've lost the kid. You know, he's gone. That's it. You can keep the armor. And Fett, does show him, like, I actually do have some history here. And we get an important point here as well, which I said I would come back to, which is that really, realistically, Jango Fett was a Mandalorian, but he was a foundling, like Mando.
Yes.
So if Mando is a Mandalorian, so is he. So when we go back to that old Clone Wars episode, there was a lot of like racial shit going on at that point in Mandalore, so it's actually not that surprising that that person would say no, he's not a true Mandalorian, because blood-wise, he was actually a foundling. Do you know what I mean? And that's the kind of stuff that the episode was about, so it kind of makes sense. It all fits in. It's quite nicely done. So really, it rewrites what everybody's been moaning that they made Jango Fett not a Mandalorian. Actually, he is. So they've fixed that little bit of canon in there as well. And given us a little bit of history of Jango as well, that he fought in the Mandalorian Civil War as well. And we get that surprising scene that we already spoke about, where Boba Fett basically says, "Nah, I'm still in your debt and I'm with you." So Mando, it cuts. We cut to obviously Cara Dune first of all, and she's now the sheriff of that darn town. And Mando comes to her looking for help, and clearly he must have went in Slave 1. At this point Boba Fett and Fennec are committed to him, so we know he's got a team of 3 already, and he's looking for information, which I'm still not sure why, because we spoke about this before, but he's looking for information on Mayfield. And you said, I wonder, this is what Kyle said, I wonder if he needs to get Mayfield, because Kyle and I had both theorised the child would get kidnapped this week, and that the finale would be a rescue. And Kyle said, I think, because we knew Bill Burr was in the season 2, so we knew Mayfield has to turn up at some point. And Kyle said, I think he maybe goes to get Mayfield to help him rescue the kid. And I thought, why? Why would he go break Mayfield, who is pretty shit, out of prison and need him to help him rescue the child? I don't quite get it. And I'm still not 100% sure why that is. Was there something in season 1, some skill that Mayfield had in terms of tracking ships that I'm missing, Kale?
I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and re-watch
I might need to watch
see
if chapter
he's
6
got
again.
some sort of specialty like that.
Maybe they'll
he
tell us in the
basically
recap
says
next week. I don't know. That's the kind of thing they usually
he
put
needs
in
him
stupid
for
recaps.
the information on that particular cruiser.
Again, I'm not.
So maybe Mando knows. Maybe Mayfield what was prior Imperial and knows about that cruiser. Maybe
Because he's an ex-Imperial then.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay, I can see the connection there, but you'd imagine they could have went and got another Imperial, but maybe he doesn't know where you could go and find another Imperial, whereas he knows that guy is an ex-Imperial. So maybe he kind of brings him along, and he'll be like the reluctant helper, like, you can fuck off, we'll let you free if you help us, kind of thing.
Like I said, I'm just like
yeah, you called
that's
it. And I just couldn't see how
my field goal
would work.
Yeah.
I couldn't see how it was going to work. And yet, logic should have told me you must be shooting close to the truth, because we knew he was in it. So there had to be some reason, and I just couldn't work out for the hell of me what it was. So there we go. That's explained. And then basically, he plays the emotional heartstrings on Cara Dune by basically saying, it's the kid, they got the kid.
Yeah.
And you can imagine just after they cut away, she was like, why didn't you lead with that? And she brings it, or she reloads her arm guns, Henry Cavill style, and says, right, let me at him. Like Scrappy at Scooby-Doo. But anyway, thankfully they did cut before that, and we didn't get to see that bit, and it cuts to the Star Destroyer. And Gideon's going in.
Well, cruiser. It's not a full Star Destroyer.
Not.
It's the smaller one.
Yeah. It's a baby Star Destroyer, let's say. And Gideon is going in to pay a visit to little Grogu, who is ragdolling these 2 stormtroopers about with the Force.
Oh, so cool.
That was quite a cool scene. what I did want to talk about with that, because I mean we could talk about how menacing, Esposito is, and how, just he's got that villain touch. It's the subtle things he does, and we've praised him so many times before. So Kale and I both love Esposito. Let's just be honest, right? So he's just one of the best actors that's out there at the moment, and it's the little things he does. You know what I mean? That you might just a casual viewer might look at it and just go, yeah, he was all right. I don't see it, but when you're watching for his performance, you know what I mean? It's just there's so many little nice touches that there's that psychology going on in the eyes. And the way he speaks,
his enjoyment of what he's seeing, like you can, he's legitimately showing the proper type of maniacal joy you would have if you're this character, and being maniacally happy is kind of hard to do without coming off campy.
Yeah.
Exactly, and he did.
But he doesn't. He always feels
menacing,
Instead, like there's hidden layers that he's just not showing you. He's just always so calm as well. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't show much emotion. It's just tiny little touches up and down. Sometimes it's just a mouth movement when he goes for happy. I'm pissed off. It's just literally the eyelid drops slightly and the mouth goes an inch down, and you know exactly what is going on in his head, and that's that. I think Al Pacino was great at that. I always felt Al Pacino was robbed in The Godfather 2, because in that film I just think he told us everything about Michael Corleone and what was going on in his head just through his eyes, through his facial performance. You know what I mean? You almost felt like you could read his mind in that film, and that's the skill that Esposito's got. And of course, he's been in higher caliber affairs, shall we say, than Star Wars. If we're talking, obviously, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. These are high end, drama stuff, and that's the kind of thing we've seen him in. But we've also seen him in The Boys, and look at the way he tore down Homelander and The Boys as well. Do you know what I mean? Just again, such a good performance. He's just one of the best bad guys that's out there at the moment.
Presence.
Anyway, and he just basically teases little Grogu a little bit, and then when he's finished teasing with him, he blasts him, and that's it. It's the end of the show.
Well, it has the trooper blast him with a stun.
Oh, yes, I should say that exactly.
I love the fact that he does a Ebony Maw moment when they first enter her and Grogu's tossing the two troopers around, the other troopers with Gideon. One of them's like set for stun, and he's like, "No, wait." And I could hear Ebony Maw saying, "Let him have his fun." So I liked it. There's nothing else to say really. We knew he was going to get a team. I said that in our season 2 preview, and in one of my theories. I said, he's going to need a team of people, and that's going to be like the last two episodes is getting the team and then going to rescue the kid, because I think you and I have thought this kid's getting kidnapped at some point during this season.
From quite early on, because there just needed to be that level of... How would you do another climax? Do you have them under a siege again? Well, a siege would be the same as season 1, so it doesn't really work. So you need to do something different, and I think that's what made me think, well, the child has to go away. That has to be the thing that, it takes Den into a dark place. And I wouldn't even guarantee that he will get him back by the end of the season, but I'm not saying he won't. I'm just saying I'm not guaranteed. It doesn't seem completely obvious to me, because we just have no idea how things are going to go and where it's going to go into season 3, which is really they're building sets for that at the moment, by the way, folks.
So
before we get into speculation territory, then let's just get the grading out the way, Kel.
Well, I got one complaint.
Oh, one complaint.
And this,
okay, this is interesting.
This was really key to my 4.5
Gotcha.
instead of a 5. The Dark Trooper usage literally being the Iron Legion go down and rescue, quote unquote, kidnapping in this case, the civilian from a battlefield. Like, I was expecting that second lander to be filled with Dark Troopers and us to get a good Dark Trooper fight. Because
but that's just not the time for that yet, is it? Clearly, there's this...
Yes, it is time for the initial to give us a strike of fear of what these things are capable of. Because right now we don't know what they're capable of. So I would like to have suspense of, we find out that these are death machines covered in Beskar, like you said, and we don't get to see them in the next episode, but we've got that, like, oh my God, he's got a lot of these things going into the last episode. You see what I'm saying? Like, I would. That's the type of thing I would have created.
I'll say is, and it does definitely depend on how it ends, but from a writer point of view, I could see a way of doing that differently, and in terms of that, I don't want to tip my hat specifically to the character at this point. I don't want the Mandalorian to be as aware of what a threat he's up against, because I'm planning for him to lose this fight. What if the finale is a darker ending? Almost like a cliffhanger type thing. So where actually Mando and buddies get their ass kicked off these kind of Dark Troopers. Now, I'm not saying that's what I want. I'm not saying it will be like that. But what I'm saying is, if that is the case, that would explain why they only did what they did in this episode, because you wouldn't want to tip your hat to the lead character.
I guess.
Do you know what I mean? So I'm prepared to wait and see on that one, is what I'm saying. I think once the season's over and we're talking about it, we'll bring this point back and say, okay, should they have done more at that point, or did they do it the right way? And we can kind of review it, because you look over the whole season, of course, when you get to the end anyway.
Circle this in my notes.
yeah, so we can kind of come back to it. Anything else, Kel, that you want to say before we grade it?
No. I give this a solid A plus still. 4.5 initial, but looking at some things that I really enjoyed, like the Fett coming back with his armor, how much I actually enjoyed Fett. The fact that despite things like you and I being right about there was going to be a kidnapping, at least attempt at the, when it starts, we know it's at least an attempt. That they still managed to shock us with the Razor Crest being destroyed from low orbit, low Tython orbit, and seeing acting from help me with DS.
Who?
It's going to be hard.
Which guy are you talking about?
Gideon.
Oh, Esposito.
Thank you. Him and Den, or not Den, but Pedro Pascal, who we know does wear the suit. He does
most of the time.
Emote.
I don't think he does in many of the
through...
stunt scenes, because that would just be stupid. You know, to have your actor in the stunt scenes, you just don't need it when he's wearing a helmet.
Like,
you don't do that.
Scenes of him where he picks up the Beskar.
Yeah, like the scene at the start.
That's all him, and he's saying his lines on set, and yes, he's doing ADR after, but it's I'm telling you who, like, this was a fun episode to go back over, even though it's such a short episode, and I knocked it for that. I still, for everything else, yeah, fucking A plus. Robert fucking Rodriguez.
Yeah,
way to go, buddy.
You know, it was a surprise because we didn't know Robert Rodriguez was one of the directors, and it actually takes us back to a leak that came out, you know, a while ago. I was going to say years ago, but clearly it's no years ago, but earlier this year, that was like, yeah, they're filming, and I don't know, it was somewhere in California or something like that, in a kind of deserty type place, and there's stormtroopers there, and there's a guy who looks like the director wearing a hat, and somebody had watched it couldn't be Dave Filoni, you know, and they're like, nah, this is bullshit. And it's basically that whole sequence, do you know what I mean, that this leak was describing. Anyway, so yeah, I have to say that yeah, it's an A plus for me as well. I was very happy with that, and I gave it obviously a 5 out of 5 at the start. I thought it was one of my favourite episodes yet of The Mandalorian, because it kind of world built in a way that wasn't in your face, and it surprised me in ways that I wasn't expecting. And like you, I have a new appreciation for Boba Fett that I didn't have before, and that in itself has to be commended, I think. And as I said, with Robert Rodriguez, surprised that he was a director, but did a good job, didn't he?
Robert's got it in him when he needs
not
it.
His
He's
normal
not all
kind of
shark boy and lava girl.
Not the kind of thing you would expect him to do, actually. But just a great 30-minute set piece. Actually, the way it worked, you know what I mean. It really is just this one place with 3 main characters interacting and being in an action scene, and it just works.
I'm trying to think of his Mexican trilogy, and those are all very big and bombastic, if you will. So yeah, I guess you are right. It's a little out of character
I just wouldn't
for
have put
him.
him at Star Wars. You know, I never have thought, oh yeah, I'd like to see a Star Wars film from him. But you know, hey.
But especially this small of a thing. This just one place, this one.
But that's
object,
why the episode worked so much, and why it worked as a 30-minute episode. You know, because we've moaned before about how last season some of that stuff they were trying it, but it wasn't working within the time scale. And the key thing is you can't introduce too much in one episode. You can't tell a complete story, start, middle, and end. And this episode didn't try to do that. It was a middle episode. It was an Empire Strikes Back episode. It just picked off from where the last one ended and introduced things that had happened earlier on in the season, came together, and just one basically big set piece. You know what I mean? And that was that episode, and that's just why it worked well for me. So let's just, before we finish up, get into some speculation, Kyle, because we've been pretty good so far, but not perfect. But we've had a pretty good run. So you go first. Where are we going?
We know a couple of things here. One, Fett and Finnick are with Mando with Din, and they're saying they are committed to him, and Fett is like you said, I'm hoping and praying that they're doing this right, and there's no double cross.
Oh, that would be
bullshit.
That would be shit. No, actually,
that would ruin it.
Especially if it came to a point where Gideon's like, "I'll pay you double," to just turn around and walk away, and he goes, you've got yourself a deal or something like that. Because then I don't need a mini-series because I don't care anymore. You know, there's no point in bringing the character, but if you were going to do that, just start him in that neutral point. Don't tease character growth and then not follow through in it.
Yep, exactly. So I trust them. We know he's talked to Kara. I'm guessing Grief is likely to come along. Maybe not. It depends on whether
shit
was written there for that.
You know, not that
he might stay behind.
The actor that says that, I clearly know it's not. By the way,
what's that?
You know, I said too old for this shit, which is basically obviously Roger Murtaugh, which is Danny Glover. Do you know what I mean? Just making sure nobody thought I was getting the actors mixed up there.
Yeah,
for some reason.
Somebody in the comments will definitely yell.
No.
But he might decide to stay back and hold down the fort while Kara's gone. Either way, there's been we know that from Kara that he's trying to go get Bill Burr Mayfield from, I can't remember the planet she named,
but some prison that he's in anyway.
Yeah, they're that is his next target. Now, however, a call went out to a Jedi.
Or did it? I mean, is that guaranteed that, you know, any Jedi, anybody with Force sensitivity would hear it? Is it, you know, is it like a personal phone call? Hey, to the Jedi that has to turn up at this point.
I'm guessing that because like they said, Grogu has to make a choice, and I think him using the Force with Din might because I still think they're gonna stay together in 3, unless in 3 they're trying to get him back because like you said, season 2 it ends in a downer. So anyways, I know in seasons or episode 7 it's going to be him getting his team, and then that should be our Gideon and Empire heavy what they want with the child.
So that it's cutting back from Mando's mission and what's going on with Gideon. Yeah, I agree that we need... I don't want to not see them again till the end. We need to start seeing things from their point of view a little bit more now that they're in possession of the child. I completely agree. This is the time to show us some of that. What do you think, I have to ask you, what do you think his plan actually is? Now, I'll give you some potential options because I think the Dark Trooper stings out the window with is that they're going to go for Force sensitive troopers. Doesn't appear to be the case unless he's got an upgraded version planned. So that leaves me with 2 possibilities, alright? And I may be missing some, so if you want to add anything else in, go for it. But the 2
Can I guess one for you? Is one of them related to the Darth Vader style armor that he wears?
Yes. Yes, I think there's a possibility that maybe misguided, maybe it can't be done. You know, the Force is not a thing that they find it particularly easy when it comes to cloning and all that sort of stuff. But what if he is just trying to give himself Force powers? He's got himself a lightsaber, you know, he kind of sees himself as this, you know, and maybe he believes that it needs to be somebody with the Force in charge. Without the Emperor, hey, I'm the man to step up, but oops, I've not got any of these pesky Force powers, so I'll get some crazy wacko scientist guy for Camino and ask him if I can basically transfer somebody else's powers into mine. I'm not saying that necessarily would work the way he wants it. That would have to remain to be seen, but I think that is a potential possibility. Would you agree?
So here's how I see my version of that. I think maybe he's in that armor because he's damaged already. I think he is a Force sensitive, but maybe not
particularly strong.
Maybe not powerful. Think he's like, what's her name? Maz. Sees stuff, feels stuff, knows stuff, can't really do stuff, right?
Gotcha.
And I think the clones potentially are him, but he's trying to do a force consciousness like transfer and power transfer too. Like that's one theory I've got for he's trying to clone himself into a healthier body with more power,
and then
basically.
he'll do some sort of conscious transfer that he thinks so,
or he needs the force for
into this, or maybe he needs the force to do that.
Maybe he needs the force for the soul transfer, so to speak, the essence transfer.
I feel that's too
maybe
personal.
it's that.
Just to fix myself isn't grand enough for him. Whereas I think setting himself up as, I'll be the saviour of the galaxy. This is what the galaxy needs. I'm doing what works for what I believe is the best thing, and I'm going to.
Right.
That's a more compelling villain, and kind of looking at Esposito's comments, I kind of think that would be more his goal rather than just kind of prepare himself.
No, I agree that his ultimate goal is that.
But it's just
I'm just saying, I think he's damaged underneath, and that's why there's the clones, because maybe he's dying, and he can't do this transfer thing that he maybe read about in the Emperor's logs somewhere or something like that. You know what I'm saying? To touch on the sequel trilogy a bit. And so that's where he needs the child, either A, as to enhance his force abilities, or B, be a conduit of sorts so he can get into a body. But I do agree, he wants bigger, grander things, including power. I've always been against the idea of him getting force powers through blood transfusion, though. So I really don't know how I'm going to feel if that is the route that goes.
It's so far been unsuccessful. It could remain unsuccessful, and it went really too controversial either.
Trying it and it doesn't work, I'm okay. Like, it creates a monster or something like that. Okay, sure. But I still don't like the idea of being able to take from one's M count and give it to another.
No. It's not my favourite theory. It never was my favourite theory. But there's only one other one I can kind of think of at the moment, and I like this one less, right? And this is the Snoke theory, that basically this is all leading up to, there's some connection between Gideon and maybe the Emperor and where he is, and this is leading them up to them trying to kind of, he knows that they need to clone a new Emperor. He's trying to do that. It could be like the earliest part of that work that then leads into the sequel trilogy.
People theorized.
So a lot of people obviously theorised that one as well. There was that Snoke theme that played when we saw the clones. I mean, that's a very deliberate signalling, if you like. But I thought, hopefully subtle, like to say this could be, you'll need to work that out for yourself, but this could be how things went that way. But this is much earlier than that, because we are, I think, still many years off Snoke ever being a thing at this point in the universe. This is 5 years after Jedi. Ben Solo wasn't really even born at this point, I don't think, or was just getting born. So we're kind of not quite at the point of Snoke appearing or the First Order starting to kind of grow in. But this is only season 2 of The Mandalorian. So it could be heading that way. They could be kind of trying to connect it all up with the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
And see if it does a better job of explaining things that actually, in some ways that the Clone Wars did to the prequel trilogy. It may make me have a better appreciation, because I don't think the sequel trilogy were badly made films. They were well shot. They had good dialogue. There just wasn't any substance. There was no force. It was like it was dead. There was no reason for it to exist. Whereas the prequels were, in my opinion, the opposite of that. They were poorly shot. They were poorly directed, scripted, everything like that. But there's a real story behind all there that you can pick out.
Fans can go fuck off.
So Clone Wars made prequels better, but when I still watch the prequels, I think this is still a shit film. Do you know what I mean? But it is more possible to make the sequel trilogy look better by explaining all the lore that made it make sense elsewhere.
You mean the stuff they said that they were gonna do in all those books? Like, hey,
I mean, there's some of the stuff happened in the books already.
Aftermath. What's that?
There's already some stuff that's happened in books that they've used to try and explain some of basically the plot holes, especially in the Rise of Skywalker. There's some stuff that's come out already. And this could be where they're going with it all.
But I'm saying like originally they told us that before 7 came out, we were gonna know a lot about the galaxy between Jedi and Awakens.
I think they didn't know themselves.
They never fucking did.
They didn't know. So if they didn't know themselves, I don't think J.J. Abrams sat and thought this is how the First Order got created. What I think is potential is that people are then having to sit and go, right, this cunt Abrams has come up with this First Order, right, we need to make this make sense within the canon, and much more skilled people are then in the background trying to fit it in so that it all actually makes sense. See, some of those guys that are doing all that work in the background, Lucasfilm, give them the job as the writers, because they're better than the big ticket people that you bring in, because I tell you what, that's a far harder job. Do you know what I mean? To sit down and put all that together in a way that makes sense. And this is one of the ways that I think fans have always had appreciation for Dave Filoni, because he kind of did that with the Clone Wars and then Rebels. He kind of made that connection between the prequel and the sequel trilogy that just wasn't there under George Lucas's direction. So that is possible, but I would prefer that would be maybe somewhere they could go in the future, but we're not at that point yet. That would be my preference. So if I had to choose one, I'm going with option 1 at the moment, which is one I didn't like with originally. Is there a third option, Kyle? Can you give me a tiebreaker?
I mean,
for what he's doing with the child,
Dark Troopers,
what he wants the kid for,
droids.
The whole plot.
There's really nothing else. The child is either it's either gonna power him into a new body or power him up. Well, one way or another, I think that. And that's something we talked about back in season 1 recap shit and stuff me and you talked about last year, just ourselves on Slack and stuff with the other LRM contributors, is that fucking blood are we going to see a fucking forced blood transfusion? That's a terrible idea. And I really think that's what's going to happen. And I'm like, what? Why? You've done so good
some of the times
so
that I thought, I hope they don't do this. Sometimes when they do it, I'm surprised and I go, okay, I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So maybe
Boba Fett.
Yeah, you see, I'll give them when I don't like something, I'll tell them I don't like it. Do you know what I mean?
Right. I like time travel in Star Wars. I fucking hate that. I cannot stand that time travel exists in Star Wars.
I know. And I don't think, that's the thing that's really going to annoy you. What he's really doing is he's using the power of the Grogu to force power a giant time travel device. And he's going to take his starships and Dark Troopers back and turn the course of the war. But then he's going to meet time traveling Jedi Ezra Bridger, who will go, I protect the timeline, and I'm not going to let you do this. That's terrible. I hope nobody ever even thinks about doing anything like that. Please, that's shockingly bad. No,
Ezra's the Star Wars version
like,
of the
something
time.
I would go. I would have a joy watching in Stargate, but Stargate's.
No, what's that group that has Loki imprisoned?
The Time Variance Authority.
Yeah,
they're going to connect it up and connect the MCU Ezra's and Star Wars together.
Version
and
of it.
The Star Wars galaxy's actually part of the MCU multiverse. There's another universe where they just exist in different universes. And Tom Holland's going to appear as Spider-Man in an episode of the Mandalorian.
Oh God!
Hey, I'm Peter Parker, and I jump through universes. And Loki will turn up. About that. It actually makes you cringe, doesn't it? But see if the MCU, see if Disney owned this in the 80s, that's what they would have done. I guarantee.
Or if Sony had it now.
If Sony had it now, that's probably what would happen. Yeah, they would listen to people that. And somebody that's just spouting a lot of shit like that like us, and you can imagine the Sony executive sitting there
that's a brilliant idea.
Rubbers and shove pencils up their noses and stuff, and like say, I'm hungry. Then they'd be saying, "Oh, that's a great idea, man. Let's hear that." Or they just smoke an incredible amount of weed, and they're like, "Oh man, that's so good. We gotta film that right now, man." I don't know. But that's the kind of
good American accent work for your good American stoner work there, Cam.
What can I say? So that would be my fear. Something like that, they would do it. Let's face it, they would do it, and we just hope Disney has a lot more sense than that, which they have with Marvel, but they haven't so far. I don't think with Star Wars. But let's hope we're in a new dawn. Anything else that you want to say, Kyle, before we wrap this bad boy up?
I do want to give you credit. You said you thought. I believe it was you said you think that this season will feature a Beskar spear versus Darksaber duel between Mando and Gideon, and that clearly is setting it up.
Oh, so here's one other question I've got for you.
Good job on that. Just
before we wrap up, do you think Ahsoka's coming back and Bo-Katan and all that for the finale?
I did think Ahsoka was at first, and then now I don't necessarily.
Let me present you some evidence. Right, there was a Instagram post by the guy that plays Axe Wolves, right?
That makes it seem like
they did
more
Dawson
episodes.
says, like, I can't wait to work with you again. This was such a great experience. And they weren't in the same episode in any way whatsoever. Right. There wouldn't have been any reason for them to mix. And it's made everybody think, I wonder if they're all coming back for the kind of finale type thing. Like, which is kind of like
Ahsoka still could.
See, do you know my only thing against this, right? Kind of feels a bit like season 1. Meet all these people, get them all together for the finale. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hope they don't do that every season, because then it starts to have a pattern all the time, and I don't think that would be the right thing to do.
No.
That worries me.
They got to change it up a little bit, but we'll see how many friends he collects and in what ways they help. Episode 8, I have no idea what to expect. I am like you in the idea that knowing or at least from what we do know that Pascal's in, Esposito's in
season 3 you talking about?
Yeah. And I think even what's her name, Cara Dune, even though she might be getting her spinoff, I think even she's supposedly
I've not heard
down
anything
for season
actually
3.
that would confirm that either way. No, the only people we know for sure.
Not either way. That's why I said she might even possibly be.
Is really Pascal and Esposito because of comments that they've made. And just reading between the lines, no one else has really said anything. So,
that's why I worded it that way. And
I don't know much about that.
I just a dark and I mean we like those in Star Wars, don't we? We like a darker.
I do. Not everyone
middle.
does, but since Empire Strikes Back's my favourite film of all time, I like a movie with a dark ending that makes me go,
I
watch that again immediately. More so than
that's
a
why
happy
a lot
ending
of
sometimes.
Dude, people and Infinity War versus Endgame,
Yeah, but see, that's one where I actually have changed my mind over the years, because I've originally I was Infinity War's better than Endgame. I don't know what were you?
I was Infinity War over no, I was Endgame over Infinity War at first, and then I became Infinity War over Endgame.
See, I've kind of reversed for you then, because I've actually got a bit more appreciation of Endgame as it's went on. It is almost like a circus sometimes, but there's just some moments in it that still have a power over me. Like I still get such a buzz with some of those moments in the finale. Don't
get me wrong.
You get that, and it goes
with you.
after a while of a repeat viewings. But I know a movie's special and it keeps resonating with me for a long time afterwards. But don't quote me on that. I don't know. I could change my mind back and forth. They're fucking both great films. Anyway, that's besides the point. Kyle, give us a plug for all the other stuff that our lovely listeners can find on our network.
All right, guys. You know where to find us at lrmonline.com every single day for all of your entertainment news, needs, and opinions. Make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, because all of our podcasts are starting to go up on YouTube, or most of them are. And if you're lazy and don't want to download an additional app or something, or you can't get Spotify and wherever, you got YouTube, you can listen to the show. So subscribe to the YouTube channel and the podcast network, so that way when you can do podcasts, hey, we're there with great shows like the Cantina, LR Mornings, and Breaking Geek Radio, the podcast. And
Great.
There you go.
And Kel,
Cam,
where can
I did you had the brain damage guy do
but he does it so well. We call him Kel the plug, because I remember doing it in the middle. And remember, you can find that on our network and all that sort of stuff. So you've got the voice for that. No one wants to hear a Scotsman do that sort of stuff. It's like when we do trivia gauntlet, Jammer's much better at doing the intro than me. You don't want to hear that. And now, here's your host, and all that sort of stuff. It just doesn't sound good in a Scottish accent. Anyway, where can people find you online?
I am at that Kyle Malone on Twitter and Facebook. Believe it or not, I do have one of those. So, if you like to do that, I'm there, and I write on the weekends when we have stuff to write about, and do LR Morning. So there you go.
Yep, you can find me at LRM_Cam on Twitter as well. On Twitter? That must be a Freudian slip. I quit.
You
Kyle,
quitter.
I'm letting you know, I quit. So no, you can actually find me there on Twitter. Twitter is my new app that I'm working on that I haven't released to the world yet. It's far better than Twitter. It's going to blow the world away. Social media revolution. Anyway, that's where you can find me, and we will see you next Friday, when we will be discussing chapter 15, aka episode 7 of season 2, and we'll see what happens then. Bye!